Welcome back, Super Dungeon Explorers. In the last episode, we talked about how to set up a game of arcade mode. So now we're going to talk about what happens next. The hero's turn. In the hero's turn, we'll activate two heroes one after another before moving on to the power-up phase and then moving on to the monster's turn. So first, we're going to pick a hero to activate. I'm going to pick the Questing Knight, put a jewel onto their card to show that I've activated him, and proceed with the turn. So let's take a look at a hero card. Hero cards are the same throughout Super Dungeon Explorer, whether you're playing arcade mode or classic mode. So you only ever need one of their cards. So at the top we'll find their name, Questing Knight, and below that we'll find their race and their class of hero. Questing Knight is a human hero. There are only a few instances in the game where cards will refer to another card's race. For instance, Fey Alchemist here is an elf. There are some characters that are demons, and so forth. It's a very rare occurrence, but if it ever happens, that's where you can find what their race is. So, next to that information, you'll find their movements and action points. The movement points are the ones that are on top of the D-pad icon, like you would find in a classic controller, and their action points are the ones that are on top of the button. And under those two values, you'll find their statistics, their strength, their armor, their will, and their dexterity. Each of these has a number and a colored dice associated with it. So for example, Questing Knight's strength is 2 red dice. His armor value is 1 red dice and 2 blue dice. Will is 2 blue dice, and dexterity is 2 blue dice. So whenever we're called upon to make a test with one of these statistics, we'll refer to those and grab the appropriate dice. The next thing we'll find are a few icons next to those statistics. One here we have is a sword next to strength, and a number. The number next to the sword means the range. So in this example, Questing Knight can make a basic melee attack using his strength value within a range of 2 squares. Now, whenever we determine squares, whether it be for movement or for range, it can be in any direction, up, down, left, right, or diagonally. And that all counts as 1 square. So Questing Knight can make a basic melee attack from 2 squares. We'll find on other cards, for example the Princess Emerald, she also has that same sword icon, meaning that she can make a basic attack using her strength value. But she can only do it with a range of 1. However, she also has an arrow icon next to her dexterity, meaning that she can make a basic missile attack using her dexterity value within a range of 8 squares. So she's quite a sniper. And here we have the Fey Alchemist, who has a wand next to her will value, meaning that she can make a basic magic attack using her will value within a range of 6 squares. She also has that same sword icon, meaning she can make a basic strength attack using her strength value within 1 square. So, when picking your heroes, it's a good idea to get a balance of all the different attributes and abilities. So this here is a balanced team. We have a dedicated melee attacker, a magic user, and a dexterity user. So the next icon we'll find on every card is the shield icon. That shield icon means that this character, whenever they have to use a defensive roll, they will pick one of their stats that have a shield next to it to use as their defensive roll. So whenever you attack the Questing Knight or have to defend as the Questing Knight, and you'll roll a defensive roll, you'll pick the armor statistic. Some cards, for instance Kunoichi Candy here, she has 2 shield icons next to her different statistics. So whenever she's attacked or called upon to make a defensive roll, she could use her armor or dexterity, unless otherwise specified. Alright. So the next thing we'll find is their hearts. Here Questing Knight has 5 hearts. So if Questing Knight takes 5 points of damage, Questing Knight will be defeated and removed from the board. Next value we'll find is their potion limit. Question 9 has a potion limit of 1. So, since we started the game with 1 potion, he can no longer carry any more other potions. The Alchemist here, for example, can carry a maximum of 3 potions. And we'll explain how we get more potions throughout the game in a moment. The next thing we'll find is their Crystal Affinity. Crystal Affinity has certain effects throughout the game. One example is from the enemies. Here we have the Bramble Knight spawn. On the back here we'll find that the Bramble Knight spawn has an ability called Bramble Growth. Heroes that do not have the green Crystal Affinity count squares within 2 squares of the Bramble Knight as difficult terrain. So what that means is, Questing Knight here doesn't have green Crystal Affinity, so whenever the Questing Knight here tries to move close to the Bramble Knight spawn, he will treat those squares as difficult terrain, which can be a big game changer. Princess Emerald here has green Crystal Affinity, so she won't have that problem if she ever tries to get near the Bramble Knight spawn. So it's very important to know what arcade card abilities you have to make sure you read them all thoroughly so you don't forget abilities like that. Another example of Crystal Affinity coming into play is with treasure cards. So here we have a Sapphire Crystal Shard. When you equip this card, it'll give you +1 red dice to your armor value. But if you have blue Crystal Affinity, you will instead get 1 green dice to your armor value. So those are 2 examples of how Crystal Affinity comes into play in Super Dungeon Explorer. So next to their Crystal Affinity, we'll find their passive abilities. Questing Knight here doesn't have any, but here the Fey Alchemist does. She has Alchemy and Potion Master. So we'll refer to the back of the card to find out what those mean. It's a handy reference. So below all of that information, we'll find their unique actions and potions. In Super Dungeon Explorer, there are plenty of unique actions between heroes, and there are 2 different kinds of unique actions. We have red offensive actions and blue supportive actions. So let's talk about how you use this. So actions take up action points. Every hero has an action point limit, usually 3 on average. So if you want to use an action from your card, you have to make sure you have enough points in order to activate it, and then follow the instructions on a unique action. So red actions are offensive actions that could cause 1 point of damage, whereas blue actions are supportive actions that will never cause damage. So let's talk about how we could use this. Here Princess Emerald has 2 unique actions, one called Stinging Shot and one called Scope. So if she wanted to use Stinging Shot, we'll take a look here. It has a missile icon, same as her dexterity over here, which means that this is an offensive action because it's red that will use her dexterity value because of the missile icon. So she's using a dexterity roll within a range of 8 squares, and it has a modifier of +1 red dice to her dexterity, and if it's successful, it'll cause ice. And on the back here you can find out what does ice do. Okay, so for example, if we wanted to do Stinging Shot on an opponent that was within 8 squares, we would do a dexterity roll. First, her base dexterity of 2 blue dice, 1 red dice, and then the modifier of another red dice. And we roll it, and then compare the results, and if successful, she would cause the status effect ice on her opponent. So let's talk about her supportive action here, Scope. Again, supportive actions do not cause damage. Here we have a generic arrow icon, which means this special action would not necessarily cause her to roll one of her statistics. However, we'll find next that this special action has her roll her dexterity value versus her opponent's dexterity value. And if successful, it causes Bane. And Bane can be found on the back of the card, and it even has a handy reference for when playing arcade mode, because Bane will cause different effects whether you're playing classic or arcade mode. So when, for example, rolling against an opponent's attribute, such as dexterity in arcade mode, we'll have to refer to the card. Now, in arcade mode, these cards do not have dexterity values, so whenever you're called upon to make a roll like that, you will always use an enemy's static armor value. Alright, so those are how you use unique actions, and you can use as many unique actions or basic actions in conjunction with each other as long as you do not reach the point limit. So for example, in Princess Emerald's turn, she could use Scope and then Stinging Shot, or she could use Scope twice and then a basic action, or she could use a basic action 3 times and that's it. Any combination, as many times as you want, as long as you don't exceed your action point limit. You simply pick the action, spend the action points, as long as it doesn't equal, or as long as it doesn't exceed your action point limit, and then follow the instructions. Here we have Massive Sword, which is a melee attack with a range of 1, a modifier of 1 green dice to its strength, and it causes massive damage. The massive damage will cause 2 points of damage, other than the basic 1. Offensive actions only cause 1 damage, unless otherwise specified. So, that's talking about unique actions. Let's talk about potions. So each hero has at least 1 unique potion, typically. And there's 3 kinds of potions: supportive potions, offensive potions, and emergency potions. So during your turn, you can choose to use a potion. The way that you do that is by spending a potion token on that hero's card whose potion is being used, and then you proceed to use its effects. Supportive and offensive potions can only be used during the hero's turn, while emergency potions can be used during the opponent's turn. Potions do not take into account a character's action point limit. Potions count as an extra action that work differently than regular action points. However, heroes can only use 1 potion per turn. Faye Alchemist here, for example, is a potion master, which allows her to use an extra action during her activation. So she can use 2 potions, while every other character can only use once per turn. And again, the way they use them is the same way as you would a unique action. You see they're using it, you spend the potion, and then you look at its effects. So let's actually put this on to effect in gameplay. So again, I activate the Questing Knight. I will move, and you are allowed to move up to your maximum movement point limit and perform actions freely up to your maximum in any order you want. For instance, you could move, attack, move, perform an action, move, perform an action, as long as you do not exceed your maximum limits for both those values. So here I'm going to move the Questing Knight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and now I'm going to use Mighty Throw. It's a melee attack with the range of land 6, and it has a modifier of +1 strength. +1 red dice to its strength. And I'm actually going to use a potion. So the way that I do that is I simply, if you're playing with friends, you simply ask, "Hey, Faye Alchemist, I want to use your potion." The way that we do that is we note that the Questing Knight is drinking Faye Alchemist's potion. So we'll take the potion from the Faye Alchemist and apply the effects onto the Questing Knight. It's very important how you remember this, it's very important to remember how this kind of works, because you're drinking the Questing Knight's potion. You're not necessarily drinking your own. You're drinking the effects from the Faye Alchemist card and applying it to the Questing Knight. This is important when it comes to Wrath here, because it says here, drinking a potion gives you 1 Wrath token. So here we go. Questing Knight is drinking Faye Alchemist's potion. We will give the Questing Knight here 1 Wrath token, and we'll see what the effects of the potion is. Secret ingredient. It affects allies, and it'll add 1 green dice to the hero's next dice roll. Alright, since I'm using Mighty Throw, it'll be added to my next offensive action here. So my base strength is 2. Mighty Throw has a modifier of 1 red dice, and because we drank Fey Alchemist's potion, it'll give me another green dice. Alright, so pick up the stars, never pick up the dice, never count fallen dice. We'll roll it, and we'll count up the stars. Now let's say, for example, here one of these was a potion. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is count up the stars. Here I have 5 stars. We'll compare it to the enemies we'll be hitting. So the first enemy here being hit is a turnip head. The turnip head has a basic armor, or a static armor of 1. So my 5 stars beats that 1, and the attack is successful, dealing 1 damage. The turnip heads only have 1 point of damage for health, so it'll defeat the turnip head, toss him aside, and we'll take a quick note that defeating a minion or an elite monster gives you 1 wrath. So Questing Knight will now get another wrath token. Alright, so now we'll hit the next enemy. That's a Will-O-Wisp. Will-O-Wisp has a static armor of 1, but a health of 2, so this means that it'll cause 1 point of damage to the Will-O-Wisp, and it'll still be alive. So since this attack was successful, because we rolled this potion icon here, it'll give us 1 potion token that we can put onto any hero we would like in the dungeon. Doesn't matter where we are from each other. If I rolled that potion icon and the attack was successful, I would get a potion token. Well, Questing Knight and Princess Emerald here are already at their potion limit of 1. So this potion has to go to Fey Alchemist. Because remember, she can hold up to a maximum of 3. And we took one of her potions, so she has no potions to have. No potions to have. So she doesn't have any potions. So we can give her 1. It's all about being friends here. Alright, I still have 1 movement point, so I will move over 1 and perform another attack. Now this is a basic attack, so we'll start with our base strength of 2 red dice. I do not have any other modifiers because I'm not using a unique action. So he is on his own for this one. So he's going to roll it. And let's say, for example, he gets this. A star and a potion. Well, if we recall, the Will-O-Wisp defense is 1 star static armor value. So this attack is not successful. So he does not get this potion icon. It's only applied if it was a successful attack. So that's the Questing Knight's turn. He's used up his 6 movement points and his 3 action points, because Mighty Throw was 2 action points. So now we'll pick between the unactivated heroes for who's going to be the second one to activate this turn. So Princess Emerald wants to take a shot at it. Well, alright. Princess Emerald right there is next to a treasure chest that we conveniently placed next to her. So she wants to open it. Now there are a lot of basic support actions that every hero can perform. And they're kind of hard to remember, but the way that I do it is contextually. There are 3 treasure chest support actions, 2 involving healing, 1 involving disarming traps, 1 about pets, 1 about running, and 1 about picking things off the floor. And there's also 1 about exploring. So first thing first, treasure chest. You can smash it, pick the lock, or open it with a key. Well, we don't have any keys. Keys look like this, and they're dropped when we kill a mini boss. We haven't done that, so there are no keys to be used because there's no keys that are dropped, no keys to pick up. Alright, so how do we pick the lock? In order to pick the lock of a treasure chest, we'll roll a hero's dexterity value, and if we rolled higher than 2 stars, we successfully pick the lock, and we will draw 2 treasure cards and place them in the backpack. If we do not roll higher than 2 stars, then that treasure chest immediately becomes a Boo Booty monster. We'll replace the model with the Boo Booty model and have the card associated with whichever random one we pick. So that's why it's always handy to have these cards on the side as for reference in case they ever come up. And the last thing we can do with treasure chest is smash them. We simply remove the model of the treasure chest and place one treasure chest or treasure card from the deck into the backpack. So Princess Emerald doesn't want to take any chances. She wants to smash that chest. So she will remove it, take a treasure card from the treasure deck and place it into the backpack. Now we have quite a bit that's going on here. First off, successfully using a support action, and support action is a blue action, which those I just described to you were all blue actions, so she'll get one Wrath token. And then opening a treasure chest is 2 Wrath tokens, so she'll get 2 more for a total of 3. Just like that. So bam, without even attacking, she has more Wrath on her than the Questing Knight. Alright, well, Princess Emerald still has 2 action points left. So she's going to attack that Will-O-Wisp. She's gonna use a basic missile attack because she has the missile icon next to her statistic of dexterity, and she will measure her range. So starting from the first square out from her, 1, 2, 3, 4. She has range, and line of sight is determined by measuring from any point on your square to any point on your opponent's square, and if there's nothing that intercedes those 2 points, it's a successful line of sight. Enemy and friendly models do not block line of sight, but certain walls and structures, and if certain models say that they block line of sight, those do block line of sight. So this shot is not blocking line of sight and it's within range, so we'll use our basic dexterity here, which is 2 blue dice and 1 red dice. And we'll roll. Now if I rolled this heart here, so in the same way that potions work, we have hearts. When we get a heart when we roll, we'll be able to heal 1 damage or 1 status effect from one of our allies at a point in the dungeon. So this is a successful attack, so we will be able to heal someone of 1 damage or 1 status effect. However, no one has 1 damage or status effect, so it kind of goes to waste. Conversely, on the green dice, there is a heart and a potion icon, which means when you roll this, you can pick to either resolve the heart effect or the potion effect. So here we've rolled 2. It is a successful attack and will cause 1 point of damage to the Will-O-Wisp, thereby defeating it. And now Princess Emerald will get another Wrath token, but we no longer have any in our open pool of Wrath tokens. So what we do is we pick from whatever Wrath tokens are on the table that are not on her, and we will take it from there. So we will take one from the Questing Knight and give it to Princess Emerald. Just like that. Princess Emerald is getting to be quite a threat on the field. So Princess Emerald will then use her last action to shoot this turnip head. We check range, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll roll the dice, and we've got 2 stars. Bam. And that'll give her another Wrath token. So we have to pull it from the Questing Knight, put it onto Princess Emerald. And just like that, in 1 turn, she got all 5 Wrath tokens. Well, we'll see what kind of effects that has for later. So let's talk about all the other actions that you can perform during your turn. You can perform basic attack actions, unique actions that are printed on your card, and I only described 3 unique actions or 3 support actions that all heroes can get when regards to treasure chests. Smash it open, pick the lock, open it with the key. So the other actions you can take, there are 2 involving healing. One for hearts and one for status effects. So the way that we can heal hearts is through an action called Bandage. Bandage is 1 action point, and it can be applied to yourself or to another hero within range of 1. And the way that we do it is we roll our will value, and if it's higher, if the number of stars is higher than the number of wounds that's on the card that we're trying to heal, you will successfully heal 1 heart. So in this example, if I roll 2 that is higher than this heart value of 1, I'll be able to heal 1. The next support action is called Vigor, and Vigor can only be applied on yourself. You can't apply Vigor to an ally. So the way that we do Vigor is we'll roll our armor value, and it works in the same way. If we roll more stars than status effects we have, we'll be able to heal 1. So if I roll a 2 for my armor, I'll be able to heal 1 status effect. The next support action that all heroes can perform is Exploring a Tile. Exploring a Tile costs 2 action points, and what we'll do is once we spend those 2 action points, we'll draw the top card from the Explore deck and resolve its effects. I'll make a note that each tile can only be explored once using the support action. So once we explore the tile, no other hero can explore the same tile for the rest of the game. So each tile can only be explored once. And I'll talk more about the Explore deck in part 4, where we talk about all the other extra things. So the other support actions you can do is to disarm a trap. Traps come from the Explore deck, and possibly any other effects. I'm not sure any monsters do it, but they're all in the Explore deck for sure. So we'll find traps on the field like such, and we can disarm a trap from a range of 2 squares, which is important because traps activate when you're adjacent to them. So the way that we disarm a trap is we'll get at least within 2 squares. Say we're going to disarm it, it costs 1 action point. We'll roll our dexterity, and if we roll higher than the number of stars on that trap, in this example here, Spiked Floor has an armor value of 1. So if we roll more than 1 star, we will successfully disarm the trap and remove it from the field. Alright, the next thing we can do is conjure our pet, or summon our pet. If we had a pet card like this, equipped to one of our heroes, and the pet was defeated, the pets do not die permanently, they will simply return back to their card next to their master. So in subsequent turns we can spend an action point to revive our pet and summon them back within 2 squares of their master. Okay? The next thing we can do is scavenge. Throughout the game, certain items will fall onto the floor, like chests, or like keys, princess coins, skulls, and such. So the way that we pick them up is we simply walk into an adjacent square and spend 0 action points to pick it up. It's actually a free action, so just make sure you call it out, because you don't ever want to be in a situation where you forgot to pick up something on the floor. So you simply pick it up and you will place it into the backpack. And the last thing you can do is run. Now run is a special thing. Run costs all your action points before you spend any action points. So for example, if Princess Emerald wanted to run, she would have to not have opened the treasure chest or performed any attacks. She needs to spend her full 3 action points. And if she can, she's then allowed to move twice her movement speed. So in this example, she'd be able to move up to 12 spaces because her base movement is 6. The Alchemist has a base movement of 7, so she'd be able to move up to 14 spaces. So again, you have to spend all your action points. You can't move up or perform an action and then decide you want to run. You have to do it before you spend any. And if throughout the game you get more action points, you still have to spend your maximum action point limit that you have at that time. Alright, so those are, I believe, all the support actions you can do. That's how you perform the hero's turn. You pick a hero and perform your actions up to your limit, and you can move as much as you want up to your limit. And the main objective is to destroy monsters, grab loot, and move on to the dungeon. So the hero turn is done. We'll move to the intermediary power-up phase. So during the power-up phase, we will draw loot cards, which are the blue backed cards, one for every monster we destroyed, up to a maximum of 3. So we had killed 3 monsters in that previous round, so we'll draw 3 loot cards. 1, 2, 3, and place them in the backpack. And then we are allowed to equip these cards. To equip a card, we will place them beneath our hero, lining up these jewels. So each hero has 4 jewel slots: a ruby slot, an emerald slot, a sapphire slot, and a citrine slot. I think that's what it's called. So simply line it up, place it on the card, and now whenever we're called upon to roll certain statistics, they will now be permanently buffed depending on by whatever the card says. So in this example, Questing Knight now has a permanent buff to his strength of +1 blue dice to his strength value. So whenever he has to attack someone, it'll be 2 red dice and 1 blue dice. Very handy. So we can equip as many heroes as we want, any way that we'd like. So we simply place it under them as such, although there are some limitations. So the first one being, you can't have 2 equipments in the same slot. So for example, this Regal Portrait here is a red jewel treasure, so I can't have it under this slot here where the Questing Knight already has a red item slot. So if we wanted to equip this onto the Questing Knight, we would first have to discard this loot card first entirely. We can't simply swap it out, give it to another hero, or do something crazy like that. We have to discard it, and then we'd be able to place it. But in this example, we're not doing that, so that's totally fine. And something else to note is that you can only have 1 treasure card, which are the red backed gear cards, per hero. So right now that's not a problem. We only have 1 treasure card anyway, so we'll simply equip it and not have to worry about it. But in the future, the Fey Alchemist can only have 1 treasure, so if we found another treasure we'd like to give the Fey Alchemist instead, we'd have to pick between one of them and discard it. Now during the power-up phase, I mentioned that you can only draw up to a maximum of 3 loot cards per monsters you killed. So if we had killed 4 monsters, for example, we would still only draw a maximum of 3. And if we'd killed 2, we'd only draw 2 because we only killed 2. It's also important to note that in the far future of when we're playing the game, we'll get treasure cards and our heroes will be equipped almost to the brim. So if we get treasure and then we decide, for whatever reason, we don't want these treasure cards, they're not good enough for whatever reason, if you don't equip treasure or loot, they get discarded by the end of the power-up phase. You can't keep them in your backpack forever. It'll get too heavy. If you happen to discard treasure cards, these are all loot, but if it happens that you draw a treasure card that you don't want, you will get to heal 1 heart or status effect. There are a few other things that happen during the power-up phase. If you happen to have destroyed a spawning point during the power-up phase, that is when a mini-boss would spawn. So for example, if we happen to kill this spawn during the turn, we'll put a mini-boss during the power-up phase in that square where the spawning point was. So like that, or like that, or like that, or like that. Because this is a large base monster, at least one of his squares is in the vicinity of where that spawning point used to be. And also, I'll make a quick note. When you destroy a spawning point, you will immediately place a princess coin where that spawning point used to be. And then, during the power up phase, you would put a mini boss. And then if you happen to kill a mini boss, during the power up phase, well, when you happen to kill a mini boss, they would first drop a coin in one of their squares. And then during the power up phase, when you killed a mini boss, or after you killed a mini boss, we will advance this Muddy Monster table down one spot. So it says here, when you destroy one mini boss, the monsters will get a buff of +1 star to their armor value. So if you kill enough mini bosses, all the monsters in the dungeon will start to get real buff. And those buffs are cumulative, so they can get multiple buffs to their armor or strength value for every mini boss killed. So that's how the hero turns work. That's how the intermediate power up phase works. So the next thing we'll do is the console's turn.